Right now, take a bite of almost anything in your kitchen: a piece of bread, an apple, a handful of rice, and you're tasting a fraction of what that same food would have tasted like to your ancestors. Not because the food has changed completely, though much of it has, but because your ability to taste it has quietly changed too. Humans today are, in a very real sense, tasting the world through a duller instrument than the one evolution originally built. So, what happened to human taste? And why does almost nobody talk about it? To understand what we lost, we first need to understand what taste actually evolved to do. Taste isn't just about pleasure. For most of human history, it was a survival tool, a chemical early warning system running constantly in your mouth. Bitterness signaled potential poison, since many toxic plants share bitter compounds. Sourness signaled possible spoilage or unripeness. Sweetness signaled safe, energy-dense food worth pursuing. Saltiness signaled essential minerals the body couldn't produce on its own. Every flavor carried information, and reading that information accurately could be the difference between a nutritious meal and a fatal mistake. Ancient humans needed sharp, sensitive taste receptors because their lives quite literally depended on getting the answer right. Here's where it gets interesting. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer diets have found that ancient humans likely encountered a far wider range of distinct flavors than most modern people do today. Not because their food was fancier, but because their food was radically less processed and far more varied. A single forager might eat dozens of different wild plants, roots, and fruits across a season, each with its own unique flavor profile shaped by soil, season, and ripeness. Compare that to a modern diet built heavily around a small number of crops: wheat, corn, soy, sugar, refined and standardized specifically to taste consistent and therefore less distinct every single time. Your ancestors' palate was constantly being challenged and recalibrated by genuine variety. Ours is often trained on repetition. This constant exposure to complex, ever-changing flavors likely kept ancient taste systems finely tuned. Studies on modern populations with diets closer to ancestral patterns, including some remaining hunter-gatherer groups, have found these individuals tend to detect bitter and sour compounds at lower concentrations than people eating heavily processed Western diets. In other words, their taste buds are picking up on subtler signals that many modern palates simply don't register anymore. This isn't because their biology is fundamentally different. It's because their environment kept demanding precision from a system that dulls without regular use. So what dulled it? The answer traces back largely to two closely connected forces: processed food and constant overstimulation. Modern food science has become extraordinarily good at engineering flavors that are louder than anything found in nature. Hyper-concentrated sugar, intense salt levels, powerful artificial flavor compounds designed specifically to hit taste receptors as hard as possible. When your taste system is repeatedly exposed to these amplified signals, it adapts the same way your eyes adjust to a bright room, by raising its threshold. Milder, more natural flavors that once registered clearly begin to taste bland by comparison. Not because they've changed, but because your baseline for what counts as flavorful has been dragged upward. Researchers have documented this pattern directly. People who reduced processed food and added sugar for even a few weeks often report that naturally occurring flavors in vegetables, fruits, even plain water, start tasting noticeably more vivid again. the receptors themselves didn't disappear. They were simply drowned out. There's a second factor working alongside processed food, and it's one you might not expect: smell. Roughly 80% of what we experience as taste actually comes from smell, detected as you chew and exhale air up through the back of your nasal passage. Ancient humans lived in environments saturated with natural scent information: decomposing leaves, specific plants, animal signs, changing weather, all of which likely kept their olfactory system, and by extension their sense of taste, highly active and discriminating. Modern indoor environments are comparatively scent-sterile, climate-controlled, filtered air, synthetic cleaning products replacing the complex natural scent landscape our senses evolved inside. Some researchers argue this scent-poor modern environment may be quietly contributing to reduced flavor sensitivity as well, since taste and smell were never meant to operate in isolation from each other. None of this means modern food is worse in every sense. Refrigeration, food safety, and consistent nutrition have unquestionably saved lives. But it does mean something quieter and stranger happened alongside all that progress. We built a food system optimized for shelf life, cost, and consistency, and in doing so, we slowly trained an entire species to expect louder flavors and tolerate less complexity, without ever making a conscious decision to do so. So the next time you eat something plain, a piece of fruit, a simple vegetable, and it tastes underwhelming, it's worth asking whether the food is actually bland, or whether your taste system has simply been recalibrated by everything surrounding it. Your ancestors' mouths were finely tuned instruments, built to detect the subtle difference between nourishment and danger in every single bite. That same biological hardware still exists inside you today. It's just been sitting in a much louder room for a very long time.